Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, and welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. Who is the awakening woman? She is the woman seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her conversations will introduce you to talented women who will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. They share their stories and explain how they are in service to the world. So let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My conversation this week is with Kerry Wilde. She's a yoga teacher, reiki practitioner, and female empowerment mentor. However, I particularly wanted to highlight her womb alchemy work. In order for us as women to fully reclaim our sovereignty, we each have healing to do. And as we delve into deep discovery of ourselves, uncovering and releasing trauma and shame, it will ultimately lead us to acknowledging the power of our womb, as Kerry affirms it, the creatrix of all life. It's also time that we address the negative associations and often offensive connotations that surround words such as vagina, cunt, and pussy. Kerry talks about their true definitions and their powerful origins. She also talks about the transformative power of crystal wands and yoni eggs. So I hope you're as excited to listen as I am to share with you this new episode. But before we get into it, as always, I ask each of my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel at your most her?
I think this is when I'm really plugged in to the earth. It's when I'm really in my body rather than in my mind. It's when I'm kind of Shakti or energy or life force, whatever you want to call it, is really running through my system. And I'm kind of in the flow of life. And so I'm really connected to nature. I've got like my feet on the earth. I'm feeling grounded, but I'm also feeling connected to source, so that everything is opening up through this connection to like my life force energy, and my crown is fully opening up to all possibilities in the cosmos as well. So this looks like in my day-to-day, because I am a single mother of 2 boys and have my own business. And so this really looks like daily practices. So this could be like a sadhana practice in the morning, or it could be just like something that I fit into my day, like a breath practice, and something that really brings me into my body. So it could be like a breath practice, or it could be a movement practice, or it could be just as simple as putting my hands on my womb, my feet on the earth, and taking 3 deep breaths. So that's when I feel really, really in that HER, her essence. Yeah.
Perfect. And so tell us some of your story, Kerry. How did your life lead you into the work that you do now?
So my life really led me into my womb healing work through a journey of really coming into physical contact with the womb. So for me personally, it was the becoming pregnant, so becoming with child, and it was quite an unexpected pregnancy. So it's kind of, I went from literally a very hedonistic 20s. So I lived like a decade of doing lots of partying, lots of exploring with house music and community, and literally living my life of outside of my body. It felt like true escapism. So amongst all of that, I did lots of healing work, but within that container, I did a lot of partying, a lot of dancing, and living a high life really. But also, as we know, within that there's kind of an area of escaping our own inner journey, our inner alchemy. So really becoming pregnant right at the end of my 20s was a time of having to be fully in my body and being like, okay, I can't actually go out and party anymore. I can't actually, you know, escape in any other way. And it was really having that contact, making contact physically with the womb space and seeing this, or feeling this being growing in that area, was probably the first time I'd really kind of dived in to that area physically and energetically. So I feel like that was the beginning point, and then from there, I then went on to have my child, but also sit a lot, because when you first have a baby, you're kind of sitting and you're breastfeeding and you're nurturing another life, and you actually begin, like, stuff comes up, you know, like having a baby, stuff begins to come to the surface. And I feel like that first period was really like a breaking down of this maiden archetype, which I'll talk more about archetypes a little bit later, but I feel like the maiden to mother energetic life cycle archetype was really when I fully began to harness the womb energy, coming into mother. And I feel like this maiden to mother is not really, or a lot of our life cycles and our transitions in life as a woman is not really honoured with any kind of rites of passage. You're just kind of, you're in it. You're in it, and you've got to just kind of find your feet. And you know, one of my big things is creating this support for women at these life cycle changes. And these don't necessarily have to be when we have a baby. You know, people enter maiden to mother at different points of their life, but it's an energetic quality. It's an energetic passing over. And yeah, so I feel like there needs to be more support for women around these times. So for me, the womb alchemy work really came in quite a few years after this. It was after I trained in yoga. I discovered that yoga was like I actually trained in Ashtanga, probably the most masculine yoga that you can actually do. But it was all about this real transcendence of emotions and really connecting to something high up, like heaven. You know, it's kind of like really releasing everything that's going on within your body, any feelings, any emotions, and really going out there, which was a beautiful practice for me. But at the same time, I was doing this really strong practice and then landing back into my earthly world and really not feeling great. So it's almost like yoga turned into what I used to be doing on the dance floor, and my partying and my drug taking and my, like, you know, alcohol taking in my 20s. Yoga replaced that, and it became a form of escapism, and escaping out of my body and out of how this really felt. So when I was in a posture, how I never tuned into how I was feeling, or how was my womb feeling good, or, you know, anything like that. It was really about, are my limbs in the right position, and breathe. Am I in alignment, and breathe? So what came to really, when I came to a realization that was so not, there was kind of keeping me out of my body, is I went to a plant medicine ceremony, and I was still feeling really like outside of myself. I'm really not powerful as a woman in this world. And even though I was teaching yoga, I was a mother, I was feeling, you know, like I'd achieved lots of things in my life that I wanted to achieve. I still didn't feel in my power as a woman. So as I went into this plant medicine ceremony, I called upon the mother to show me how to find my power as a woman. Like, I knew it was in me, but I really wanted to understand how I could really harness this power. And the guidance that came through really strongly was, she just led me to my womb, and she said, breathe here. And they were like, the big words were like, connect to your lower belly. And I was like, my lower belly? What's going on there? and I was a Reiki practitioner, so I was like, okay, it's the sacral chakra, fine. But I never really, the word womb didn't float my boat back then. It was like, womb, like, why would I want to go there? But after I came out of this ceremony, it was like, right, my intention was to sit with this energy and sit with what was happening in my sacral chakra, in my womb center. And from there, the journey really took me to begin to look outside. So look at what other people were connecting with on the womb, like find experts, find practitioners, find tantric practices. And from looking at the womb, I began to realize that actually I haven't actually gone and done any healing in this place specifically. And I hadn't actually looked at my my yoni, you know, like actually this sacred gateway that we all, you know, all women have. It was outside of me. So I'd had a child through this place, and, you know, I'd had lots of sexual encounters, but never really done much healing there specifically. So that really, the plant medicine ceremony was really like an initiation into this is the portal, this is the place where we have, you know, our power center resides. So I feel that was really the beginning point of the womb alchemy and the healing that was going to take place.
Brilliant. And with regards to the work that you're doing now how you've transformed those experiences into what you do, who are the people, or who are the women specifically that you work with, and what is it, how does it take form, the work that you do?
So the women that I specifically work with are mainly women that are either moving through transitions, maybe they're stuck in their lives, or they're feeling like stagnancy in their creativity, so things aren't moving forward as they'd like. Maybe they're shedding kind of old skin, you know, they're kind of not feeling like they're their fullest self. But also a lot of women that come to me have physical ailments like endometriosis, or they have painful periods, or they have something, maybe cysts on their ovaries or something physical. And so people come with like some sort of physical thing. And really my work is working with the energetics of the womb space. So the first thing we really look at, and the thing that changed my life beyond, was actually mapping your moon. So mapping the moon cycle, really understanding the energetic archetypes that live within the moon cycle, and that it's okay to be a woman and feeling different things at different points of our moon. And I'll just talk a little bit about the archetypes, because I think it's, you know, it's just really was the biggest transformation for me. And lots of listeners might have already heard this, and Carol, you might already be aware of this, but like the maiden, the mother, and the crone were like the original Holy Trinity. Like in the matriarchal time, that was the triad of power: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And we see that throughout fairy tales of like the pure, innocent maiden, like Snow White, for instance, coming in, and she's got this dynamic force, but it's like spring. So we can also relate these archetypes to seasons. But she comes in like she's social, she's curious, she's kind of effervescent in her nature, and she represents the first stage of our cycle. So after we've had our bleed, it's kind of like that week afterwards where we are just like, I feel amazing, let's book all our business meetings in this time, you know, like I want to go out and I want to socialize and see people again, I'm ready. And it's kind of like that moving out into the world. It's like an outward energy and an outward nature, so you're ready to interact again. And actually it's a really good time to book those business meetings in the diary, be in that more kind of, I guess, masculine essence, because you're a dynamic force in the world. And then you move into your mother energy. So then as you're ovulating, you'll move again into your mother. your mother archetype, where you're kind of like the connected to Mother Earth, like your perspective changes into a bigger level. So you're, rather than the maiden is very much like kind of one pointed focus, the mother energy is really about opening the world up and seeing children of the world, you know, needing her, maybe in, I don't know, in, as you go into the park and somebody wants to have a conversation with you and you're like, you're advising them, suddenly you're in your mother energy and you're feeling this is a really great exchange, and it's, you're ready to be of service, but also on a bigger perspective as well. So you're really thinking about a bigger picture of like the world, and you're feeling like you're able to nourish people from the inside out, and it feels like a really harmonious balance within you. And these, all of these kind of life cycles, you can take out and look at them in your life as a woman, like your whole life. If you stretch it out and see that the maiden could be in like the teens and the 20s after you've had your first bleed, to like maybe you're in your 20s, and then like you go into your mother maybe in your 30s, maybe in your 40s, and then you come into the next phase, which is actually in your menstrual cycle, is your biggest phase, and it's the luteal phase, which is the pre-bleed phase. So after you ovulate, you have 14 days. Most times it's 10 to 14 days before you bleed. And this is called the enchantress phase, which many people know about, but it's like that quality of the destroyer, almost like a Kali energy, that she comes in, she's destructive, she's just going to crumble everything that the mother thought was really real. She's like, no, I'm going to slash this away. This is the truth, because she's fully in her intuitive power, and she is, but she's not going to bullshit. She's not going to kind of, you know, pussyfoot around and do things to please others. This is about being like on her true soul alignment mission. So the enchantress is the quality that is kind of missing from that Holy Trinity, and it's almost the quality that's been banished from our society. So it's the essence that we don't see, you know, as, she's not in the glamorous rom-com movies, or she's actually like the wicked queen energy that we see in like fairy tales. And she was actually distorted in those fairy tales, so that, you know, the woman was not allowed to be in her full power and in her full intuition and in her full truth speaking. So we're seeing this energy begin to rise again as women are becoming more connected to their wombs and connected to their power energy. The enchantress is rising on the planet at the moment. But it's also, when you begin to map this, it's also key to share this with other people. Like when I first found this, you know, like having a moon map and saying to friends, I'm in my enchantress, like what, you know, watch it kind of thing. But, you know, just letting people know and like being aware of where you're at is, I think, is a great way of communication. And I think hopefully in the future, businesses might be able to utilize us when we're in our different phases of our cycle. So the enchantress is kind of like that very deep psychic energy, but it's becoming inward. So you start to withdraw from social engagements, and people can sense something is going on with you, kind of like, oh, and we've all been in those relationships where it's like, are you coming on soon? It's like, oh no. But if we don't repress that energy, we can become to, we can kind of harness this energy into creativity. So we can begin to take that kind of destructive energy and create really beautiful things if we harness the enchantress. And then as we move from the enchantress, we come into what I like to call the wise queen, but obviously she's known as the crone to a lot of other people, or the old hag, which is beautiful. But the wise queen is when we really, take all of that, the learnings of that moon cycle, and we withdraw from society completely, and we go into our cave, and we, if we don't repress the energy and still have to be that dynamic force going out to work every day, because that's when we exhaust ourselves as women, And obviously society doesn't allow for this times of our cycle, but if we really truly listen to the natural rhythms, then we can withdraw and we go into our beautiful cave time. And within that cave time, we become the oracles of our life. So we can allow these visions to come, which will help carry us through to the next moon cycle. And, you know, I mean, there's like the ancient tribes used to obviously go to the red tents. All the women, when they were on their moon cycle, used to go to the red tents. And there's like a myth, or it's probably truth, but they said if you want to ruin a village, you go and burn down the red tent. You know, if you want to completely destroy a village, because the women of the village that were bleeding were the oracles of the village. They held the potent wisdom, and they could see, you know, the projection of what was to come, what was going to happen, whether there was going to be a war or what. You know, they would be the ones that would be kind of prophesizing what was going to happen to them, maybe if there was going to be a flood, or if there was going to be. So if you wanted to completely destroy that village, you would go and get rid of the oracles of the village. So, you know, we hold this wisdom within ourselves, within our body, within our womb, and every woman holds this. And I think as we begin to tune into the rhythm of that, we can really harness that in our lives, and really it makes us much more powerful, because we can actually, you know, kind of understand what's to come for ourselves, and be these visionaries of our lives. So moon mapping, sorry, I've just gone on a big one.
I like that, keep going.
Because it's a really important part, that if a woman is having any issues physically, this could be coming from, you know, an energetic place. So my work is energetic. That's how I work, and it's like a Reiki style healing practice, working with the divine feminine energy, and so it's not any kind of it's no touch in terms of like massage, because there are other people out there that are doing very kind of tangible work with massage and things like that, but my work is working on the energetics, and we're working with these archetypes to bring them into balance, because you may have a dominant maiden archetype energy, and the mother may need to balance in some way. I also work with a guide called Mary Magdalene, and she was she was Yeshua or Jesus's consort or lover, and she comes in when I'm doing my womb alchemy work and offers support and messages for the women. So it's been amazing to explore working with her, and she comes up with some very tangible bits of advice, which, you know, this is coming through me and it's a transmission, but she was a priestess of Isis. She, you know, embodied this Shakti energy, and so it's very profound, her wisdom, and I feel very honoured to work with a guide like that.
And when did that start for you? When did you start working alongside that energy, and how did you recognize it? Because, you know, to say, yeah, I work with Mary Magdalene, it's like you kind of say it because it's normal to you, but it's like,
yeah.
when did that first come, and when did you first accept it? Because was it when that energy came to you and you then were aware of it, were you accepting of it straight away, or did you have to kind of, how did you work your way into it and trust it and then go forward and bring it into your work?
Yeah, so Mary Magdalene came to me, well, an energy. So I see energy in colours and vibration, and yeah, and it comes into my third eye, so I get visions of what's there. But she was kind of knocking on my door at 3 a.m. for months at different times, like not consistently over a week or something, but she would just come in, and it was this bright red energy, and I didn't know what it was, and I was kind of, and it was my womb, so she was really healing my womb, and my womb would go red hot and lots of things, and I would be putting my hands there, and I was like, what is this, what's happening here? And I asked it who it was, and she just said Mary. And I've got a nan called Mary that died when I was 5, so I was like, oh, it's my nan. And then kind of left it at that, but this energy kept coming to me, and then gradually I began to, you know, things dropped into my awareness that I was reading about Magdalene, and I was like, oh my God. And I just knew at that point it was her. And then gradually she's been coming in, and she's here for all women. So if we ask for her to join us in our meditation or in our healing work, she is all for empowerment of women. And you know, she was the woman that was by Jesus's side that, you know, he absolutely honored the feminine as well. So, but she, you know, she was doing it for the women. You know, she was out there with all of these men at a time when women were being disrespected and repressed, and she, you know, had the ultimate journey of redemption. You know, it was a beautiful, beautiful story of how she's allowed to come in and work next to Jesus. And I feel that, you know, her story is still untold in the world. There is a Saint's Day for her in July. It's her feast day. But I still feel that there's a lot more that is developing from the transmissions that are coming through all of us that are connected to the lineage of the Rose and Mary Magdalene. So yeah, and I feel like if anyone's interested in Mary Magdalene, it's all here for us, as in it's all in our bodies. And if we begin this journey of womb alchemy, we can call on Mary to really support us and nurture that awakening. She's there.
That's great. And going back to your work as well, does your work include women who've had particular experiences, or how do you work with women who've had particular experiences? So talking about, like you said, like fibroids, cancers, hysterectomy, abuse, so quite traumatic experiences that are usually centered around the womb and the womb area.
Yeah. I mean, I work with all women that have been through different experiences. You know, what might be traumatic for one woman might not be for another, and it's kind of like you know, a sexual experience in somebody's teenage years might be stuck in a stagnant energy in their womb space. So I feel like womb clearing is a huge vehicle for releasing anything that is traumatic in this space. And that's something that I definitely work with women on, to make sure that they are really aware. I think it's tuning into what is there, and then it's actually clearing and releasing, which can be showing up in their lives as blocked creativity. It could be very painful menstrual issues, which can disappear as we start to tune into our womb. I used to have painful periods, and my periods are very pain-free now. I've moved to moon cups, and that has just transformed everything for me. So I really, you know, if anybody is interested if anybody has painful periods, I suggest mapping your moon being like one of the first things you begin to do, and also using a moon cup, which is so much more natural than having kind of anything toxic in there, which have chemicals. And it's also, if you think about that, blocking the flow, whereas actually a moon cup holds the blood in there. And you can actually then take the blood out, and you could put it into your plants as a form of kind of compost, or you can actually go out and do little rituals to connect your blood to the earth and giving it back to the earth, which is a really beautiful way of connecting to the earth and connecting your womb to the earth. And there's lots of rituals you can do around your blood and the wisdom that's in the blood. So I feel like these practices that have been kind of taken out of our society. When we begin to normalize this, because obviously we've only seen blue liquid on a sanitary pad on the TV, and it's like, oh, blood, oh my god, as soon as we begin to say, oh, okay, this is normal, like we all bleed, and like, I'm in my enchantress energy right now, and that's okay. I'm just going to be more truth speaking. I'm going to harness this really sexual kind of creative woman that I've got inside of me, and that's okay. It's okay to be seen and to be, in inverted commas, too much. That's the energy that we've been told to hold down and hold back. This woman wants to be wild, she wants to be seen. So I feel like as we begin to unlock these areas, which are quite simple tools, the trauma begins to release. Like it's like a bubble kind of that's held in our womb and almost like popping. And it's like, you're sinking back into something that is part of the earth, part of nature, part of your natural connection. And a lot of these menstrual issues can be caused from trauma. So I think endometriosis has a very big link to trauma, and the womb alchemy work that I do is all about release. It's all about tuning in. It's all about connecting to your creative energy, and it's about really balancing the energy of the womb space. And talking about the bigger picture of the womb, I mean, the womb is the creatrix of all life. The womb is the creatrix of all life. Whether we are bringing in a baby into that space, or whether we're bringing in a business partnership or a project, or we want to redecorate our home, the womb is the creatrix of all of that. So our womb is like a chalice that's holding the infinite possibilities and potential for our life. So the life force energy, can be drawn up from the earth as we connect more to the earth energy, which is holding the codes for the feminine power. And as we connect more to the earth energy, we allow this Shakti, or this life force, this prana, to flow into our womb and stimulate these seeds of potential. And I feel like as we move our hips, as we hold on to our bellies, as we meditate with awareness, with our creative projects, tuning into the womb, we're really supported, because this is nature. This is not just like I don't know, like out there. This is like in our bodies. This is like bringing it into a tangible place in our bodies where we hold this well of possibility, of creation. The magic resides here. It's like a place of alchemy, which is why I call my work alchemy. It's like this kind of place where things are transformed, transmuted, and then magic happens. And I've seen women, from this work completely radiate and glow once they come into contact with their yoni and their womb. And obviously the yoni is another place. I've talked a lot about the womb, but the yoni is the place where is the gateway to this infinite potential. It's us. The word yoni means sacred space. One of my teacher, Uma Dinsmore-Tooley, who teaches, she's wrote a book called Yoni Shakti, and also she teaches worldwide women's well woman yoga therapy, which I'm trained in. But she calls it cunt. So basically the word cunt has been completely distorted, and it's banned on TV. People use it as the most demeaning word they can possibly say to somebody. And the word kun means deep inner knowing, like cunning. And the word cunt means this deep knowing, this like the place that you want to call home. That's what the word cunt means. And what it actually is the only word in the English dictionary that takes on the whole of the women's genitalia, so not just the vagina. And vagina actually means sheath for a sword. It's a Germanic word that means sheath for a sword. So you can imagine if it was a man or a woman that invented that. But actually, cunt takes on vulva, the labia, the clitoris, the cervix. So it is encompassing the womb and the yoni in the word cunt. So yeah, we can start to reclaim that word at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, without laughing or without somewhat. It's funny how words will just kind of become something else.
Yeah.
And will trigger you in such a way, and then when you actually sit down and start to understand where it comes from, and like you did, break it down and see where it needs, you know, that talking about cunning and knowing, it's like, well, yeah, that's the center of, like you say, inspiration and ideas and birth of ideas, or birth of life or business or anything like that. And it's the channel from one side to the other, isn't it? It's a magical place, and we just need to remember that. And even when you were talking about the way that sanitary protection is sold on television, it's like sterile blue. Why, you know? And then suddenly when you have like red come out, it's like freak out. It's not blue. It just but it's nice to then start bringing it back. You know, when you were talking also about yoni, obviously it triggered the word yoni in my mind in terms of like yoni eggs and crystal wands and everything like that. Do you work with apparatus like that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. I actually use them in my personal journey, and God, they've been one of the most influential tools that's, you know, an actual tool to use for actual transformation of transmuting the locked energy that I say that I was clearing from the womb space. And the yoni egg is just an amazing tool, like to bring you into the awareness of that place. So even if you work with having the yoni egg in, like, it's really good to work with the yoni egg under your pillow at first to really connect to the energetics of that crystal. And you can get the yoni egg in different crystals. So you could have it in a jade, which is the jade is like kind of the queen energy of the Chinese queens that used to use it. And actually, I think it was a practice that was only used by the Taoist highest queens that knew how to use this practice. So the fact that we know about this at this day and age is just amazing, that there are these tools out there to connect in such a tangible way. And again, it is such a kind of a hands-on way to really connect to our yoni and really feel the wounding that might be held there. And for me, I mean, one of the biggest things is kind of healing the root has been the biggest part of my journey, and really coming into balance with that chakra. Because for me, I had a lot of instability growing up, and the foundation of the root really wasn't kind of earthed in this here and now. And I would say that using the yoni egg is just such an amazing practice to bring us into our root chakra, where there is security, there is foundation, there is abundance, there is, like, you know, this money that is flowing to us. We can manifest from this place. When we connect to the earth energy, we are plugged in to the present. So using something like a yoni egg, you know, you can pop the yoni egg in, and I mean, I don't know if to tell you a funny story or not, but yeah, I was going to say, after having a child, it was quite an experience to just pop the yoni egg in. You know, is what you hear, and it's like, if it stays there, you know, but it actually works on this rather than Kegel exercises, which are very much about really tensing and holding, and almost like this deep contraction. Actually, the yoni egg practice is like an energetic practice of welcoming something into this sacred space with breath. And you can use mantra, and you can use affirmations, and it can be such a sacred ritual to really begin to rewire our brains, especially if we've had lots of sexual experiences, which many of us have, you know, but it's a way of really clearing this maybe old energy and toxic energy out of our yoni in our womb. So using the Yoni egg has been, yeah, like a fundamental part of this whole journey with the womb alchemy. So yeah,
that's great. And also, how do you work with women who have never conceived? Because there are so many thoughts around that. For instance, it could be through choice or circumstance that suddenly now that center is not going to create for you, and the choice has been taken away. So how would you be able to work with someone who might be feeling guilt or shame or disappointment that their creative center is not creating anything?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel that there is a growing choice of not having children in this day and age. And I, like being a mother myself, I feel like that is, it's amazing that women are making that decision. Because from a, you know, being spiritually ready to go on this journey, well, we're never ready to be a parent, but there is a responsibility of welcoming this spirit or this life force into your womb and into this life. You know, you're actually creating this soul, or yeah, allowing this soul to come through you is such a sacred thing that if you're not feeling like that's what your path is, then I feel like it's such an amazing decision to say, actually, this is not for me. But within that dynamic, of course, there's always like this light and shadow play, and there's always like two sides of the story within any of these decisions that we're making around creating life. There could be, well, there is always grief within the womb. You know, there's like this tendency to hold a lot of our grief and our sadness in this place, and I feel like when we make these very difficult decisions around conception and around maybe it's difficult to conceive, and maybe we've been through a journey of that, and we come to the point of like maybe we're looking at different options of adoption or whatever other option it looks like, but there might be like then a grieving process that begins, and it's honoring the actual and embracing the energy that's there. So because I work in terms of the energy body around the womb, we can be holding this sadness and this grief, and it can be blocking us to move forward in our lives. So I feel like women that are, you know, that haven't conceived, but there is sadness around it. I mean, there's lots of different unique stories around it, so it's really hard to kind of to pigeonhole like one thing. But I feel like definitely tuning into the womb, doing some healing work around this, you can really come into almost like a rite of passage for it, and being supported of what is the next step for me. I mean, this can happen around hysterectomy or around miscarriage, and I've worked with women around these kind of areas that are almost like traumatic events that have happened or decisions that have been made, but there's been no honouring of those decisions or no honouring of what happened, the event that happened. And I feel like as we come into these healing environments that we create, then we create this container where the grief or the sadness can begin to lift and can come to the surface sometimes. But I guide women ways of how they can navigate those things that arise, basically. So giving them different tools to be able to support their journey. So yeah, definitely women that haven't conceived, I think it's something that has to be honoured as well. It's a decision, and it can be a grieving process as well. So yeah.
And another thing that came to me as well is, at what age do you think would be a good age to start this kind of work? Because, you know, most girls will start their cycle anything from 8 years up, and then depending on how what kind of relationship you have with like a mother or a mother figure, and how open they are to you about what you're going through in terms of your periods and what it means, and also it depends on their knowledge as well. When do you think is a good time? Because obviously we go to school and we get told about, you know, sex through a banana, and you know, like it's always external apparatus that are used to kind of teach us about very internal emotional things. How young do you start working with girls, with women, or how young would you like to? When do you think would be a good time to like start to introduce them to that connection?
Well, I really feel like we are, you know, we're bringing up this next generation of young girls, and the more that I inspire women, they will then go home and have these conversations with their daughters. And it's the conversations that I'm talking from my generation. My mum thought that she was being more open than her mum, you know, because it was not talked about at all in the generation that she was born. And then in my generation, it was like, hey, I'm going to buy you a box of tampons and I'm here anytime. So it was kind of like open door, which I guess was a lot better, but it was still like the blue liquid, the, oh my God, what is that? There was still a shock factor around it. And then there was shaming around some of it as well, like during PE lessons and actually with other boys. So I feel like, I mean, I've got 2 sons, and I feel like, you know, I tell them, mummy's on her bleed, and they see some of the blood sometimes, and it's like, it's a natural thing. So that men are as much a part of this as the women. So I feel like young girls and boys, there's kind of like almost like a storytelling that needs to happen of what happens in this magic of like a woman's rite of passage, and how she then becomes a woman, and then moving on to like her moon phase, so that men and women are educated from a young age. So then it becomes like this natural, a part of life, and we live in this more cyclical way with nature, in tune with the moon. And men don't think we're going mad and we're very complicated. It's like, oh yeah, you're in your mother phase, brilliant, let's do this weekend. Oh right, you're in your one of my teachers calls it the knives day, when you just want to kill everybody in sight. So she kind of says, my husband's always away at that point, because she shares her chart with him. So it's kind of like, you know, the more we open up to kids, I think, about this stuff, the more relaxed like future generations are going to be like, yeah, I've got it down. And I feel like there's still work to be done in terms of rites of passage in this society, where we really honor in a sacred way these gateways. You know, the gateway might be becoming a mother. Well, how is that really honored when we're living in our isolated shells and we're having our babies, and we're kind of like, oh my God, okay, I'm a mother now. But there's no like, there's like the baby shower and all of that, but like becoming a mother, you know, like the rite of passage of feeling this energy and this quality of like stepping into your queendom as a mother. And yeah, I just think starting as young as possible, like with like letting children know that blood is okay, and you know, working with different energetic qualities is okay. Like we, you know, it's that okayness, isn't it? Or that acceptance of like being natural, being what a woman is, which we've never kind of like really told what that means. But yeah, rites of passage for menarche as well. Like when the first bleed, I think that's really key, that it's celebrated, and like, you know, the aunts and the how it would have been like maybe if you had big families, and maybe how a lot of women still do it, but like kind of like, yay, you know, she's got her bleed, this is what, and maybe there's like a book to be bought, or some sort of journal, or you know, like it's a celebration of this girl passing into this womanhood. Yeah, I feel like as young as possible is my answer to that. And I'd love to hold space for more girls coming into that first bleed as well. The rites of passage work is really, really needed.
That would be an amazing thing. Just, I think I was given enough knowledge, but it would have been nicer to be given more. You know, I had to it was open enough, but then you kind of pick stuff up from school, because I don't think it wasn't my mom that told me about tampons at all. She wasn't really into that kind of thing from her generation, because they had the whole toxic shock thing that went on. But then we were thinking about convenience at our age, and you know, and then also, like you're saying, with being at school, you don't want anyone to know while you want to take games off, so you kind of use. And it was sold so well, you know, it was like the freedom that you were sold.
I know. You do anything with a tampon in.
Oh, no, exactly. And as long as you don't get it too wrong, like some of the horror stories I've heard, because it's rat poison, isn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of different chemicals in there that are so toxic that leak into our system. Yeah, it's and you know, it actually represses our flow, so that you get more headaches, you get more kind of sicky feeling, you know, all of those kind of, and actually it creates a lot of cramping and tightness around our womb space, because we're not allowing that flow just to flow naturally. So yeah, I've noticed a huge difference using moon cups, like massive. Yeah,
that's my next transition. I'm getting there.
Yeah. But also, just quickly, just adding in there about the yoni, and about looking at our yonis as children and being told, okay, this is where your vagina is, this is where the clitoris is, this is where just the simple, you know, getting your child to look into a mirror with their private parts, if you want to call it that, but I would say yoni, or sacred parts is better than private parts, because that just emits shame straight away, doesn't it? It's private, don't get it out, oh, there's something wrong with it. So yeah, sacred parts, you know, and just showing them this is where everything is, because I feel like for me, and for a lot of women in my circle, we did not have a clue. And the way I found out was actually through men, through sexual experiences with men, because I hadn't really, you know, fully explored and owned my sacred space. So I feel like that is a huge key as well for girls growing up. No, please, mothers, teach them where all their parts are, so that they honour that is their sacred gateway, sacred space. Yeah.
That would have solved quite a few things, but you didn't know at the time, so you have to go through it to come on the other side.
I know.
So just flashback, sorry.
Yeah.
And just thinking of those like playground conversations, you know, like, because you, as a teenage girl, you just learn from each other, don't you, and magazines and the narrative that gets fed down there and taken on board. But it's great that we're coming to this unpicking now as well, and then just hoping that the girls that are coming up behind us have an easier time of it, and then don't have to kind of reach this point where they're then having to undo all of the misinformation and all of the blocks and the shame and the terror that's put around all of this, and to embrace those, like you're saying, those different movements that you have when you're the maiden and the mother, and you can be that, and you're allowed to have those moves, because no one's a flat line anyway, or those that are, we don't want to be around. You know, you want to be around someone who's got all of those moves and meanderings. So it's great talking to you. And
I think it's coming to that fullness, isn't it? Because then you're owning your wholeness as a woman, and you're not repressing a part of you. That aspect also wants to be seen and wants to be heard. It's like creating that fullness as a woman. Yeah,
it is. I even recently I was just watching like a clip on YouTube of a talk show. It's an American talk show, and it's kind of like pitched at 30-something women, and it was the way that they were talking about just allowing their pubic hair to grow. And there's like one of the ladies on the panel, she'd just recently been divorced, so she was just getting used to kind of being on her own and not kind of like scraping everything away at the like the first sight of hair. And she was just like, she was just saying she'd kind of come out the shower, she's just standing in her back area, and she just felt a breeze and just felt really free. And she'd never allowed herself to just grow, never allowed her hair to just grow, because she'd been married for so long. So she'd always been cultivating like a Brazilian or a landing strip, all this kind of thing. But what was and she just felt amazing. She just felt the breeze, and she's like, it just felt good. And then the rest of her panelists were just like, well, that's disgusting. And it was just their reaction to the fact that she just said, I've just allowed my pubes to grow longer. But in their mind, the fact that they were saying it's smelly, it's disgusting, and the words that they were using to describe something that's just, your hair is growing out of your body.
Yeah.
And what we've taken on to just like, it's terrible, it's disgusting, I'd be embarrassed, I'm ashamed if anyone saw me like that. And it's all of those things. And these are grown responsible women, but they get implanted into us in such a way that if you just have a little bit of hair, it's terrible.
I know. We've been so disconnected from nature, living the way we live, working the way we work, in offices, in our homes, the way we live is kind of like central heating, cut off from the outside world a lot, and I feel a big part of this womb journey is connecting to the earth and actually getting our hands in the earth, getting dirty, getting, muddy, getting like being with the blood and the bone and the soil, and really, what does that stir in you? It's like this wild woman, this wildness begins to erupt, and that is the medicine, isn't it, of healing this repression of the enchantress being taken away and out of our society, so we can be the maiden, the beautiful 20-something pert-boobed goddess, and then we can be the mother. Yeah, we can have babies and be this amazing, mother energy, and then we turn into the what has been represented is the old hag, who is also kind of steadily, been taken away from society, not honouring this wise queen actually energy that is here. So this enchantress wants to be wild. She wants to be wild. She wants to be of the earth and fully in her deepest knowing, connected to her cunt, but connected to her sexual energy and owning it and being in the mud and the dirt and the wild, abandonment of life. And I feel like that is coming into our fullness, isn't it? That is really integrating this part that has been shut down from us. So I feel like that is a big part of the healing of the womb, is to connect to the earth and growing the pubes and all these natural things that are like primal, but like it's connecting to this part of us that's been shamed or been suppressed for so long, that it's like, it all feels so good, getting onto the earth with your body and laying down and connecting to the earth is also an amazing practice, but it's coming into our wildness. I think that's like a big part of the journey of the womb.
And having the confidence, I suppose, to just do it and see where it takes you. Because I think feeling that new surge of energy within yourself, if you're not used to it, it can be disarming in any different way, whether it is that you're out in the wild and even when you stand on the ground, because I've done it before, where you just step onto the grass in your bare feet and you feel the charge.
Yeah,
you literally feel the charge, and you forget when you're walking on concrete all day long that there's layers and layers between you and anything that might be real. So to then
and it can feel
that,
and it can feel scary, that first step, like taking your shoes off and having been given permission to get dirty in inverted commas, or like really touch the grass and touch the elements. It's like, oh, do I want to do this? And like, it's the disconnection that we've grown up around, is like, clean your hands, be seen to be clean, and all of that antibacterial stuff, and actually being of the earth is like, brings us back to our most primal, natural embodiment of woman and feminine power, and like our true essence. It's like the earth holds the codes for us to really to own our own power, to come back into that fullest expression of woman. So but it can be scary when it first happens, because it can almost it can lead to that ecstatic bliss, but the first bit of it is this disarming of what we've been told, this unraveling of the conditioning.
And talking about women and in their wisdom, what is the best piece of advice a woman has ever given to you?
Well, the best piece of advice that a woman has ever given to me, which at the time made me feel a sense of repulsion, which it had such an effect on me because I wasn't in that place. Was in a yoga class, a yoga workshop at a festival years ago, and I was feeling like fully in my vinyasa flow, like radiance, and like the teacher came over and adjusted me, and she was like this slinky, tantric, awakened, Shakti moving embodiment of, like, you know, Shakti basically. You know, she was just like in her sexual essence, amazing. And I was feeling her vibration, you know, I was doing all the heart openings and just feeling really glowing, and suddenly I was just feeling radiant and feeling, and she came over and adjusted me and put her hands on me and she said, "Kerry, stay juicy." And I was like, oh, and it kind of sent like this shiver through me, and it was almost like a thunderbolt moment of like, stay juicy. Like, what does she mean? Am I juicy now? Was I not before? Like, juicy, what the hell is that? And the reason it stays with me is because I realized the journey I've been on, and the fact that a word like juicy made me contract, because it made me feel a sense of shame around my sexual expression and around kind of my full kind of my fullness as a woman again. So I feel like there was like a contraction of juicy. I don't like that word. Why don't I like that word? And I kind of went into a bit of an analyze over it. But what juicy means for me is that you're fully you're fully harnessing and welcoming and opening up to this abundance and this essence of abundance in your life. And it's this flow of Shakti that is moving through your sacred space into this portal of infinite possibility. And you're in this juicy place where anything could happen, and you're free and you're wild, and you're moving through life with almost like an abandonment kind of sense, but also it's like this ecstatic bliss as well. And as you connect more to your yoni and this ecstatic orgasmic nature, which, you know, when you start to cultivate this through tantric practices, through, you know, your yoni egg and your womb healing and womb tuning in, you tune it up, this kind of ecstatic nature, then everything in your life becomes this feeling of bliss. And so juicy, the word juicy for me, and stay juicy, is like, yeah, stay in your bliss, stay in your welcoming this energy in. So yeah, that for me, that was like a turning point.
I like that one. It's really good. Have you printed the t-shirts yet? That could.
Yeah, I know, we need slogans. Stay juicy.
Stay juicy. So lovely. And which female do you think represents higher energetic resonance?
So I feel, for me, it has to be somebody that is fully embodied in this life. Like they're not just cosmically, conceptually higher and you know, coming from this higher perspective, but also they're like embodying it in their world. So you can see, wow, this person is really embodying this. They're fully in their body. They're manifesting, you know, their life around them. They're supported. They're like a queen. And I feel that energy has to be Guru Jagat. So, you know, Guru Jagat is our yoga teacher, and, you know, she's a Kundalini teacher. Her journey from, you know, coming from like a single mother family, which I did as well, like there's parts of her journey that really resonate with me on a really deep level. But also the practices of Kundalini and the way her abundance is just streaming through her creativity. But she doesn't it's not just streaming through, she is manifesting it into form here and here and here, and it's like, whoa, she's like a powerhouse. So she represents for me like this higher energetic resonance, because it's like, it's a frequency, but it's also, it's embodied, it's in the here and now, and it's like you can see it, you know, you can feel it. It's like an elevated perspective of the feminine essence, and she's totally she's totally grounded, hilarious. She's like compassionate, and she follows through. So I think that's it, isn't it? It's like we can have these concepts, but then it's like actually the manifestation. So yeah,
I'd agree with that as well. I'd agree with you completely on that about Guru Jagat. Also, because what drew me to her and Rama, when I was kind of when I decided that I wanted to try Kundalini yoga, and I tried like a half an hour video on Gaian TV, and it was just her. And to be honest, she, like, having watched more videos of her and kind of had connections with her in person now, she wasn't even being necessarily that Guru Jagati, you know, she was just kind of teaching the class. Like her sense of humor or the depth of her knowledge didn't really come through that, but it was watching more, and that's why I was drawn to her and all the organization and the people that she has around her, is because she has that realness about her, that spirituality, that knowledge, that power, that manifestation, that kindness, that unashamed. It's like, this is my business, this is how I want to create it, I want to be big about it. Especially when you're trying to do like wellness and spirituality work, there's a old belief that we should be walking around in sackcloth, you know, and it's just like, none of that. It's like, who are you going to help if you can't pay your own bills?
Exactly.
It's all of those things, and then also the fact that it's so real. She's very much aware of what's happening in the world, whereas some spiritual teachers can be just all about that and just completely not aware of what's going on the day to day, what most people are having to come out of in order to go into that. So I agree with you 100% on everything that you said. I'm a fan. Everyone knows I'm a fan.
She's a queen. She's a queen.
Yes, for sure. And what is your favourite self-care ritual or practice?
Oh, right. So my favourite self-care ritual would have to be, because I've got 2 young boys, and, you know, I can't always find that time for myself. So for me, the evenings are my time. It's like Kerry time. And I would say the sacred medicine bath is the biggest thing for me. So I make my bath time like a ritual, and I have like Epsom salts and magnesium and doTERRA oils and rose petals and sometimes flowers, and it's like it'd be a nightmare to clean, but I have a sieve, I have it all sorted, I let them dry a little bit as well, and then I collect them up afterwards. But I sometimes have musical instruments in there, so I have like a koshi chime to clear the energy, I have Palo Santo, sometimes I have sage, I have candles around the edge. It's a moment. It's like a big moment. It's like, right, I've arrived, and it's like a homecoming. And sometimes I have mantras playing in there. I have a friend did a sound bath for me the other night while I was in the bath. Over Skype. So you can get other people involved. But yeah, no, it's just such a beautiful ritual to like be rebirthed almost in that moment. Yeah.
That sounds juicy.
That's going to be your new favourite word for me now.
Yeah, I like it. Stay juicy. It should be a t-shirt. It literally should be a t-shirt with, you know, that kind, you know, the font that they used in the when the 70s.
Oh, that retro.
That kind of like font that kind of had a wave on it. It's like two words. Stay juicy, man.
Oh my god, I'm totally doing that.
You should. You should. If you don't, I will.
I'm taking that one.
Okay. Yeah, because you're the fashion person, aren't you? So
I know.
Your thing. Get it on board, and I know exactly where you can get the t-shirts printed as well.
Oh my god, I'm doing it.
Yeah. You don't even have to hold inventory as well. This is a separate conversation, but Anyway, back to the topic. So what's next for you?
So what's next for me is really offering these, really focusing my attention on offering these sacred containers for women, these safe spaces where women can unravel and feel empowered and feel held and supported in a really grounded way and real way, and you know, a way that is not kind of out of body, but something very tangible. And so one of the real areas of focus is my mentorship program, where women get to have one-to-one mentorship with me, and we look at their moon charts and we look at cycle awareness and really map out for them what is happening and how they can navigate through that, and also offering tools so that can become part of their daily rituals, such as Well Woman Yoga Therapy, where there's simple practices that you can do each day that really just shift your consciousness, bring you into alignment with yourself. So I'm really excited about that, because I feel the sacred space holding is so key at this time where women are just holding so much out there in the world. You know, we're pretty stretched at times. So I feel like these coming into this deepening and unraveling, where we come into this true self through the womb alchemy. It's that's going to be my really main part of my focus for this year is my mentorship program, and only taking on a limited amount of women so that we can really dive deep together. Also, I'll be offering women's circles regularly in Northamptonshire, and also in London. I'll be offering ceremonies where I'm co-creating with a couple of amazing sisters that are in London. So everything will be on my website as well. And some really exciting news that we're launching. Me and my best friend of 20 years are launching our Awaken Sister portal, which is like an online sisterhood community for women that are just awakening to the rise of the feminine. And we'll be offering information on there, different free packages, free tools, and then we'll be having online containers that will be regular and like immersions. So that's so exciting, because I feel, you know, the world of being online, I know I've been on quite a few online containers, and they are very potent. And also you can be with global sisters all over the world, and it just gives you that extra bit of support, especially when you've got a busy life, you've got family, you've got career, whatever it is. But actually having that online support is really key of these times, I feel. So yeah, that's really exciting. We've launched that website, so that's all going up at the moment, all of the content. And then I'll be holding some live retreats. I will be leading a tribe retreat this year, co-creating with an amazing guy that's from Holland and owns a company called Earth Keepers. And really, it's about gathering women and men and children to really come together on the earth and really feel that sense of tribe that may be missing right now. You know, we work in offices, we work in our homes, and we live away from people. And actually, to come together in these extended family constellations of just people coming together and becoming mentors for each other. Some of the workshops are going to be all about creativity and how we can bring our soul essence out when we connect to nature and connect to our creativity. So yeah, that's really exciting. And there's going to be lots more. So
just a few things.
With all the best people, of course.
Yeah.
And then how can people further connect with you? Where can they find you online?
So you can find me online on Instagram. I'm at Kerry Wilde Woman, so Wild with an E. On Facebook, I'm Kerry Wilde Love, again, Wild with an E. And then my website is www.kerrywilde.com, and my sisterhood community is on www.awakensister.com.
Perfect. So I just want to wrap everything up by saying thank you very much, Kerry, for being part of this episode of Her Conversations. I've really enjoyed speaking to you and pressing record, because we normally just speak for hours anyway, so we've got it in the can this time.
Oh, thank you, Carol. It's been such an honour to sit with you and have this conversation that is so needed and bring more awareness to the womb. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Really loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Kerry, for sharing your heart and your soul and all of your knowledge with us on Her Conversations. I truly appreciate it. And if you want to find out a little bit more about me, Carol May Whittick, you can go to my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com. That's May with a M-A-E, Whittick, WHITTICK.com. Or you can find me on social media. So Facebook, I am under my own name. Twitter and Instagram, I'm Kazmick, that's C-A-Z-M-I-C-K. And also, if you can think of anyone within your circle, any friends, sisters, aunts, mothers, daughters, who would benefit from hearing this conversation that I had with Kerry, do feel free to either send them this way or share it via your social media. So looking forward to speaking to you again next week, hearing from you again, and bringing another fabulous guest to Her Conversations. In the meantime, thank you again for listening and take care. Bye.